you very much, Waziri Kipchumba, to our Bishop Kimuyu, the leadership of this church, Honorable Kipchumba, and the honorable members who are here representing various departments of government, including Justice Nzioka and the team, leadership also of the neighboring churches. I was really impressed when they introduced the church leadership, and it was really comprehensive. It was not in vain. I learned something. Na watu wote wa kanisa ya Langata, mjambo. Bwana asifiwe. Let me start by confessing that although I lived in Langata for 10 years, nearly 10 years, I never got to know where the church is. I lived in Phenom here for almost 10 years, you know. And I used to hear all the time about Langata AIC because a number of you here are our friends from home. When I came in and I saw that there was a recognition of Mzee Kalesi, I had a very difficult time because that is not his picture, for sure. That's not his picture. But so I was asking Bishop, which Kalesi is this? I asked around here, and I realized I think they put a picture of somebody else, but he was there. As because he's my father, I grew up with his children. We were in church together, even if he was in Nairobi. The sons and the daughters, we were together in camp, in rallies, in church functions at home. And so I'm very happy to be really here. Professor Borus here and his family are our people at home. Of course, you know, IG, we have worked with him in various capacities. So many people here, people I know personally, and we share background back home. And I'm very happy for the work you are doing in this church. Hillary was the teacher of my firstborn, and they were good friends. I hope he still remembers. He's now finishing Form 4. So there are many other things that we want to say. I'm here, and it reminds me a lot of good things. Asanteni sana kwa kunikaribisha to this church. Number 2 is to say that if I may confess, I was in Plainsview last week. But I went to Plainsview Church thinking I was coming to Langata. And you know that I called you IG and I said, Sinikesho, when I'm going next week. So when I confirmed both functions, I assumed it was one function. So, but since I had confirmed both of them, I went to Plainsview last week. It was a wonderful service. I am very happy to have gone there. And I went and found there the Reverend Mutangili, who used to chaplain of our children also. He's the pastor there, so I was very happy. And then came here today. So it looks like I am coming back home, pole. I also told Bishop, and I've said this, we have discussed this, and it is known to many of the churches here, to the leadership of AIC. Most of us who came from home, grown from Sunday school, brought up in church, at home AIC, in Nairobi, a number of us are not in AIC. So I don't want to confess that I'm in another church. They know. And the reason is obvious. I think we remained very rigid as AIC for many years. Some of us, when we came here and you're in campus, student Christian leadership, and we found very vibrant and fiery pastors who came to preach to us, we transitioned with them to their churches. And so when I went to Plainsview the other day, it was very fiery. When I came here, the choir was very fiery and the worship. So I think we now need to take our bishops to, as much as possible, to Christian unions in campus so that our children who are there will transition automatically to the church here. I grew up in AIC, born and brought up by a reverend who is the vice chair and of the region at home, of the region, and chair of the DCC and so forth. So I grew up in Sunday school, Bible study at home, and many of these things. So what I am is because of that very foundation of faith that came from my parents. If a letter was to be written today to me, or if there was a Paul to write a letter to my children, they would tell them, keep the faith that was in your grandfather and grandmother. And I hope they will say that is in your father. And now that is in you, like Bishop read earlier. So that heritage is extremely important for me, and it defines who I am. It's actually unbelievable that as a parent or as you grow up, everything reflects back to how you were helped by your parents. And you're wondering whether you're able to help your children the same way you were helped by your parents. And so, like Bishop was saying, sometimes it is in your head and you are trying to translate to do it, and then you are caught up in going for this meeting, you are doing these other things. And as Bishop said, we must be very deliberate if we are going to pass this heritage from our parents to ourselves, to our children, the children of our children. So Langata, asante sana kuja hapa. And in fact, let me say that when I come here, I feel a lot of nostalgia and very grateful to God that this church has a very good foundation structured with accountability. I'm glad that this church is not one-man church. That is, one person is the bishop, the treasurer, everything, and everybody is giving to the one person so that he can continue the Lord suffering. So I'm happy we have very good structures of accountability. And I know many new churches that have been established. I've had to come and study from AIC, Anglican, PCA, and these are the churches that have a structured leadership. And that is very helpful because it is important to have accountability in church. I'm very happy, as I said earlier, the changes have happened because I was in a time of transition. Especially in my village and our local church, where the debate was, can you sing by moving your body or you should remain still? It was very difficult to change people. There were times that some people were excommunicated in our church for jumping around. It was even illegal in our church to say Bwana Sifiwe at some point because you were coming with another spirit, which was Pentecostal in nature, and it was not AIC based. I'm telling you the truth, a lot has changed. That was recorded then, and now a lot has really changed in this church. There was a time you had to stand still, and my father was in between the group that was moving this way, and it was just a very interesting moment. Let me not say all these things. This is not time for that. Nimekuja kuworship na nyinyi na nimekuja kufurahia sana kwamba leo nimebarikiwa sana. And then you go to church sometimes. Na ukifika huko, some of us who have gone all over the country, depends. If you go to church impromptu, the sermon is changed by the pastor and starts focusing on you and says, either sometimes positive, very positive ones that says, we are happy, we have you, we are blessed, and we know that today, hata hii building itaisha leo kwa sababu wewe umekuja. Hiyo ni positive. But sometimes you go there and then it becomes negative. So the guy starts telling you, some of you were our members, but there is nothing this government is doing. You are failing us, and I want to tell you. Then there's someone goes south, and you are like, I was struggling. I even wanted to be edified and encouraged, only for you to be berated on behalf of so many people, and you came with your soul to be ministered. So, but I'm very happy. Today's sermon is such a great blessing. The bishop quoted my favorite chapter and a particular passage in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 1 up to 10, but basically verse 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have preached that scripture many times as a young person, and now and as I read, I remember where the children of Israel are being instructed that you must do everything to ensure that you love the Lord your God with all your heart, and that you must teach your children about faith in God. And it tells them you teach them in your house, when you are walking, when you are lying down, when you rise up. And goes ahead to say, make sure that you write the scriptures at the hands of your children, the wristband that we wear, and it says you write it on their forehead. And even in your homes, make sure that it is written in your gates, in the posts, and everywhere in your wall, and that, so that when you reach the land that the Lord God promised you, you shall not forget about the faith in God. And I think it's a very profound passage. In fact, the psalm that Bishop read in the 78 was actually, it's just that the psalmist failed to say quoting, because that psalm was literally quoting Deuteronomy chapter 6. And the sermon that Bishop preached today should actually be downloaded, put in YouTube. I'm glad even my page was live for other people to read and to listen and so forth. What we are struggling with is translating the scriptures from our minds to our hearts and living it, knowing by living it, because this is really the challenge that we have. When I spoke in Plainsview last week, I spoke about the challenges of bringing up our children, and that because of the pressures of life, changes of time, technology, current parents, including myself, struggle to bring up their children properly. And this struggle is compounded by the fact that most of us were handing over our children to either teachers or school. But remember, you need to be very practical. The schools our children go now do not have the age of the teachers that the children had when we were children. For some reason, I don't know why, the teachers who taught me was largely 40s and above, and they were older, they were parents, whether in primary school or high school, because I think teaching, we were few, and teachers were few, and teaching was also, many teachers were admitted to teachers' college later. Some even taught for 5-10 years before they went back to teachers' college properly and then employed to come and teach. And I want you to remember as parents, I know many of you are grandparents, you don't feel the same which my generation, I'm not that old, which my generation and the group feel, is that now, and particularly because this administration employed 100,000 teachers. 100,000 teachers out of 300,000, I think so, teachers. So a third were employed in the last 3 years. But you need to ask yourself the next question. What is their age? What is their age? They were employed when they were, basically they went to college when they were 20. So most of them are between 22 and 25. 100,000 teachers, assuming even 70 or 80% are 23, 24, 25, because they're being employed for the first time. Meaning that most of them are not even parents. As you know, the current generation, they start dating and getting married after 30. So most of them are not married, pushing the median age of teacher in population maybe to 25 to 28 to 30. Meanwhile, because we are very busy, we have handed over this responsibility to be assisted by these teachers. So our children go to boarding schools, and we expect them to be brought up by teachers whose general age is between 25 to 30, and struggling with establishing families and so forth. Now, what that does is that then we rechange the law. So there's no caning, there's no and so forth. And then many parents have taken teachers to court for either suspending their children or putting some form of punishment, maybe out of class and so forth. So what that has done is that you have young people they are bringing up your children at 16, 17. Basically, they are age